that's what people purchase on. People purchase on the relational aspects of the contract, not the contract stipulations themselves. And so
there's the cold open. Keep going. No, I'm kidding. Hey everyone, welcome to Creative Table. We are here today with our good friend, Mr. Peter Saddington. Pete is a serial entrepreneur. He's a producer, a certified Scrum trainer, an author, and just an all-around great friend. Pete, man, thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to hang out and talk with you, Kevin.
We're honored to have you here, and we're looking forward to the conversation because honestly, you're one of those people who I feel like we could go anywhere. And I just want to start by giving you a chance to tell us a little bit more about who you are, bring us up to speed, give us the game show introduction to who Peter Saddington is and what he's all about.
Well, how I've been, and this is something we were talking about a little bit earlier, is how I've been introducing myself these days is I'm a certified Scrum trainer. I'm a multiple founder of multiple startups, gone through acquisitions, these types of things, race car dad and go-kart dad. And so that's kind of how I've been introducing myself these days. But I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I truly believe that in my heart of hearts that everyone was built to create and to build. And so I've really taken that on in my life. And so being an entrepreneur really is kind of the all-encompassing kind of model that I kind of lead my life by. Mm-hmm. How can we build? How can we create? How can we find partners? And when you invited me on to do this, I was really excited because I was like, yes, building content, creating value, helping people.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
all about that.
I mean, well, honestly, you're one of the most creative people. I know you call yourself an entrepreneur, but to me, behind all that is a creative. I mean, you are one of the most just authentic creative people I know because you're over here and you're making stuff happen. You're over here and you're over here, but you're executing, and that's what's really attractive too. Is that you don't just have great ideas, but you know how to bring those ideas to fruition and make great things from them and do well with them. So I'm excited to learn about that and dive in a little deeper.
Well, Leonardo da Vinci once said, he said, it has come to me that the most successful individuals do not sit there and let things happen to them. Rather, they go and happen to things.
That's good, because I know one of the things that we want to do with this show is just talk about that messy collision of creativity or art with business. And as creatives, we're taught, generally speaking, a service mindset or expertise in a certain craft or medium or approach, but not how to implement that into a business, to sell it, to go after those deals, those clients, and to negotiate and to scale and to hire and so forth. So diving in, I almost don't even know where to start. I'd love to just talk a little bit about some of the companies, just a high level view that you've started, launched, exited, learned from over the years. Tell us a little bit about a couple of your highlights and things.
So I'll focus. I've built many different startups. A serial entrepreneur is probably apropos is the right term, but so many of them have been just experiments of sorts. Mm-hmm. I'll talk about three that I'm really proud of. So the first company that I created was an agile consultancy, and I started this in 2004. I built it for 8 to 9 years. I had about 19 employees here in Atlanta, Georgia, and then it got acquired. And so it took me about almost a decade to build this thing and get it acquired by a company out in Colorado. Mm-hmm. And so that was my first successful building a company into acquisition, but it taught me the value of what I consider as a model, it's really important, is the value of 1% every day. And so I want to explain this. 1% every day is, I feel like you can always be successful in whatever you do as long as you are progressively realizing a worthy goal every day, which means that you are executing on something towards that goal every day. 1% doesn't have to be, spending 12 hours working on this thing or burning the midnight oil. It can be simply the fact that you punched out that blog post, or you wrote that email, or you engaged with that client, or you asked that question, or you met with that person. This 9-year period of building this company showed me that sustainability and success over the long term, it just takes time. Mm-hmm. And we have to, I think so many people, they want success. They want all the fanfare. They want the, hey, we've done it, but it takes so much time to do that. Right. So through my first startup, it taught me patience diligence, commitment, no quit.
Did you fall into that, or did you set out knowing that's what you wanted to do?
I fell
Because
into that.
a lot of creatives, like we struggle with the commitment of that. Like, do I want to devote 10 years to this, or is that, there's this sort of
That's what it's gonna
foreshortening, right? But how did you know that's what you wanted to give 10 years of your life to? Or did you not know and you just woke up one day and you're like, wow, I've been kind of just churning the grind on this, and now it's been 9 years?
That's a great question.
So
I had a goal to be a certified Scrum trainer and train and teach software development across the world.
And for the people that don't know, what the heck is Scrum, right? Because I knew when I first heard the term, I was like, well, what?
So I'll give you in a nutshell. Agile and Scrum is simply a framework of models to build software faster. That's it. It's a framework. It's got lots of different models on how to build software faster.
And every company in the world, right, can use
exactly
that, right? So it's a pretty popular thing.
It works everywhere.
Right.
And so,
but there's a rarity to it too, which I want people to understand. Like, you aren't just one and a dime a dozen. This is something that is sought after by the largest companies, but they're looking for certain tiers of expertise within that field, and you're at the top of that, right?
Yeah, so I think there's only about 300, 400 certified Scrum trainers around the world. So I think when I became a certified Scrum trainer,
you were one of only 135, I think.
Yeah, I was one of the youngest.
Yeah,
I was the youngest when I got there, and it took a lot of work. I'll give you a little bit of context. To become a certified Scrum trainer, when I got certified in it, it took me 3.5 years. Part of that process to become a certified Scrum trainer is you have to co-train with existing trainers to prove your worth. Right. Do you know the material? Can you do it? And then not only that is you also had to get recommendations from C-level executives that you have done, transformative organizational change, software development work with these companies. And so, and this is actually very important, is that the first time I applied to become a certified Scrum trainer, I believe I had 6 or 7 co-trainings and 0 recommendations from C-level executives. I was rejected. And so the no quit in me was like, well, this is what I want to do. So I went back, I got more co-trainings, and I think I ended up, my second application, I think I had 10 recommendations from current existing trainers. And then I think I had 3 or 4
organizational change, like
recommendations from C-level execs. Then I was rejected again. And so my third time, so moving into 3.5 years of trying to get this, I ended up with 13 co-trainings and 10 recommendations from executives from large Fortune 500 companies.
You're probably like, this doesn't work.
I mean, it was.
What do you want?
But
yeah,
and I that entire process of being rejected, and just having that goal, that was the goal that I had, and every day was a progressive realization of that goal, of moving forward. Even though I was rejected, that goal is what persevered me. Now, did I know it was going to take 10 years? No. Did I know it was going to take a lot longer than I thought? Well, as an entrepreneur, everything takes longer than you think when it comes to building any type of business. During that time, I also published my second book, The Agile Pocket Guide, which was published by John Wiley & Sons in 2012. Most people don't know is that I applied to 26 publishers to get that book published, and I was rejected by all of them. And so rejection
kind of a common story too, I know, with a lot of authors. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy.
Some of the best-selling books out there were rejected.
And
dozens of times.
I downloaded all these PDFs on how to create a great book proposal, how to create summaries, and all this great stuff. And I spent all this money trying to do it. At the end of the day, it's trial and error. You create a proposal, you get rejected, you tweak it, you send out another one, you tweak it. So I got rejected from 26 different publishers all over the world. I applied to like publishers that didn't even publish it in English. They're like in Taiwanese or something like that. I was like, please, someone pick up this book. So, the theme of perseverance, dedication, no quit. I mean, that's what it takes to create any great company. So that was my first company. Second company is something I'm really proud of. It's VinWiki. It's a local application here, local company here in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're essentially a car reporting tool. And so it allows individuals to report on, hey, this is my car, this is the maintenance that was done on it. And
very cool idea. If you guys haven't heard of it, check it out. VinWiki.com.
Yeah, you can go to VinWiki.com.
Yeah, incredible idea. Yeah.
The hypothesis is that because Carfax and other systems of record for cars are so bad, outdated, and there's delays between updating, and
there's no context.
Right, there's no context. Is that the hypothesis is that if you track your own car, when you got oil changes, when you got services, when you got a dent and you fixed it. The hypothesis
When you went to the beach or whatever, right? I mean, if you just
is
wanted
giving that context allows you to be able to sell your car for more money because you've manually and personally updated yourself.
And if you're buying a high-end vehicle, you almost want to know, like, what's the story of this vehicle?
Of course.
So if it went somewhere cool, like, look, this car has this history, and you can see all of that, like, laid out for you.
Absolutely.
And almost like a Dear Diary for your car.
And so what grew out of this application, which is growing by about 400 users per day, is a million subscriber plus YouTube channel that we created. And so it's been a great success. We're in growth mode right now. We're just growing by leaps and bounds from our YouTube channel to the users of the application. We're hoping to move to an acquisition, liquidity event relatively soon. And so that was another example of persistence over time, dedication over time, no quit, and bringing in this whole thing for creatives, content creation. Mm-hmm. We found that creating content and engaging the car community would be a great way to not only tell the story of what we're doing, but to allow people to understand that this is something that they can use as well. Mm-hmm. This application for their cars and keeping the history and records of their own vehicles. And so I went from consulting and building an agile company to building an application with a YouTube channel. And then after that, I went into the cryptocurrency world. And so I built a cryptocurrency app called Yen. It's a multi exchange system for cryptocurrency. Mm-hmm. Created another pretty expansive, pretty big YouTube channel, creating lots of content, interviewing lots of different people for it. And so I've been all around.
Bought the world's first Bitcoin Lambo.
Yes, so we actually, yes, that's true. I bought the world's first Lamborghini Huracan with Bitcoin in 2017. So that had about, I think, 300 million views. So you can see my face in Russian ads and Chinese ads for like making, they're scammy ads, I think, for making money in cryptocurrency.
But a very cool use case for Bitcoin.
Really cool. It was really cool. And it was a great marketing experiment, and it really worked out well.
And that's what I love, is that these business endeavors you're describing are not possible outside the context of creativity. You're not just a guy who's got knowledge about a topic and looking at spreadsheets and opportunity. You're actually thinking very much outside the box and pulling in different ideas from different industries, putting them together, and building different products and offerings with it. So
going back to what I said earlier, not only are we created to build and created to create, but should be, in my opinion, life should be a lifelong journey of learning. Mm-hmm. And so everything that I build today is leveraging all the experience from the past, and leveraging all of those networks and all those things that I've done, and figuring out what works and what doesn't. It's just it's a constant experiment.
So backing up, I imagine when you're going through all these things, you've got to rally the team. You've got to get investors. In some cases, there's some pressure there. There's perhaps some fear there that is this going to be worth it? Is this going to work? How do you handle that? Like, what's the mindset? How do you get up every day in spite of the pressure, in spite of the fear or what you're facing, and just continue to grind and execute? I'm
going to say something that is probably going to cover 90% of everything that you asked. Is you wake up early. All
right, let's move on.
Waking up early is one of the most uncomfortable things that you could possibly do. I mean, you're laying in
going to bed early. In some cases,
going to bed early is hard, especially when you have kids. But waking up early, let's say 4:30. Most days I'm waking up around 5:30, 5:45ish. So some people would say that's not early enough. For me, that's perfect. Right before 6. So when you're waking up early, it's just you versus you. There's no one in your head. There's no one asking you for deliverables. It's just you versus you. And if you can defeat yourself, the lazy side of yourself, every day, I think you've already won 90% of the battle. Because when you're up early and you've decided to choose that suffering, of waking up early and
choose that suffering, because that's what it is.
Let's go. We're going to dive more into that. Is when you choose that suffering and you say, I shall overcome the sleep. You've already won the battle, because now you've created momentum for the day. And after I successfully wake myself up, get up, I have a pretty simple routine.
You do the Tony Robbins thing where you jump in the 6-foot hole of freezing water in your backyard?
No, not that. I drink water. I eat my overnight oats. I don't know if you know what that is. And I have a very distinct routine. But defeating myself and defeating that resistance, that's probably a better way of putting it. Defeating that resistance every morning, I've already have a leg up on everyone else. Yeah. Because at the 6:30 time period, I can begin creating content, or I can start creating emails, or I can start building, writing code, or I can do something that moves me ahead of everyone else that's in the market or that I'm maybe competing against. And so after waking up early, the only thing that I care about from my big audacious goal that I have or whatever I want to create is, can I put in that 1% today? Can I move and progressively realize the goal, the worthy goal that I have? And waking up early every morning, you already win that. You already win that battle because everyone's still sleeping. And so beating that resistance is that mental resistance. Once you have that, everything else kind of falls into place.
So how much of a planner are you, though, when you're waking up and you're executing? Do you know, like, the week schedule? Do you know the month schedule? Do you have, like, the overarch trajectory of, I mean, how granular is your plan, the goals that you set for yourself?
There is the big, the BHAG, big audacious goal, right? Big, hairy, audacious goal, something like that, of what I want to achieve. I'll give you an example right now. So I'm working with my company, Agile for All, and we do Agile consulting, Agile coaching, and training. Yep. And I do most of it online now, considering the market and the way that everything's going. But what I'm helping them do right now is move into the mobile video remote work world and helping them create more content. So for me, the goal every day is, can I create a piece of content that is valuable? Can I create something that connects with people? Can I create something that people enjoy? That after that, I don't worry about anything else. It's just small, bite-sized chunks every day.
One foot in front of the other.
Yeah, and that's all that it really takes.
Okay, so I want to hear at least one story because I know you've been there many times. So your clients, and we can mention them. I mean, just off of my memory, you've worked with, speaking of Agile, you've worked with everybody from Delta and T-Mobile and eBay to the Department of Defense, the CIA. I know there's some other big names.
A lot of big Fortune companies.
Yeah, big Fortune companies.
If we look at
I know a lot of us out there interested in, like, what's it like to be in the boardroom with these and the C-suite of these companies and be in that position where everyone's looking at you as the expert in the room, as the subject matter expert, to say, okay, what should we do, Pete? Peter, like, tell us, it's going to cost this much. How does it work? And you're in charge of reorganizing, restructuring our companies to be more efficient. I mean, in the creative sense and the creative world, we have a lot put on our shoulders to create something that's going to perform or hit a certain goal or move an audience to action, or we know we're really excellent at those things. But when it comes to, now I'm face to face with the leadership of this, multi-million-dollar, small to medium or enterprise level company, there's a new pressure. There's a new, I think, insecurity in some ways that can surface to, like, hey, I wasn't educated in the business sense to speak their language, and am I going to be exposed as some sort of like fraud or falling short of their expectation,
or like the imposter syndrome.
That's right, exactly. Imposter syndrome is a real thing. So talk a little bit about the reality of what that's like. And I'm sure at some point you were there as well.
I'm actually still there.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, or you're still there, because I know even famous directors like Steven Spielberg to this day go on set and still feel nervous or scared or inadequate for what they're producing. So I imagine in this sense it's maybe not any different.
Well, here's curious. Here's an interesting conceit, is that even though I've spoken in front of crowds of 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people, I do online training and I do training for companies and C-level executives, I'm still nervous. Like, I'm still anxious. But one of the things that I've learned, and this is an interesting conceit, is I actually make my nervousness known. And sometimes, depending on the situation with an executive or a leadership group or a board group, is I'll go in there and immediately admit to them that I don't know it. I don't know what they need. Because not only is that true, but it level sets that, hey, we're all in this together. And so I've been known to say at executive board meetings and come in there and say, guys, I just want to let you guys know that I have no ego here in the assumption that I know what you guys need, or I know what the solution to your problems is. I am here as a guide. I am here as a facilitator to work together, and I like to use this word, to co-learn and co-discover with you guys what the right solution is for the context and the problem that we're trying to solve. Now, do I have a lot of pattern recognition? Have I experienced a lot of different organizational dysfunctions that I've been able to help solve? Absolutely. I have a huge backpack, I have a huge rucksack of experiences that I can pull from. But I will never assert those into this context, because your context, your company, and my experiences could be worlds apart. And so allowing your humanity and allowing the authenticity of that truth to shine through often wins me lots of points with executives, because they're like, hey, this guy is real, he's honest, he's telling us that he doesn't know what he doesn't know, and he's not going to come in here with the presumption that he does. Right. Because let's be intellectually honest, if a CTO, this happens a lot, if a CTO read my Agile book and said, hey, this guy Peter seems like he knows something about how to help us solve our problems, and then he brings me in and says, hey, we have XYZ problems, I'm not going to be like, hey, this is your answer, this is your solution, this is how. I'll go in and ask lots of great questions. And so 3 things about asking questions, and this would be the kind of the advice to the creatives out there, is go in there with an inquisitive, questioning mindset. 3 things that I want to share with your audience here. By asking questions, it's the best way to, number 1, create rapport with your client, with your customer. Number 2, it immediately shows that you're actively engaged in understanding their problem, their context, their issues. And thirdly, asking questions allows you to hear from them what they really need. And what they really need is never what they actually say. Right. It's their body language, it's the intonation, it's the inflections in their voice, it's the hesitancy in their voice, it's that minute pause that you said, ooh, I asked that question. Now, and I'll literally call this out because it's powerful to do so. I'll say, hey, I asked that question, you hesitated. Tell me why. Why did you hesitate? And then they'll say, no. You say, well, no, pump the brakes. Really? Why did you hesitate? And then they'll tell you the truth. They'll tell you the real. They'll say, well, I said this, but what I really meant was this. And now we're getting to the real heart of the issue. Now we're getting to the real meat and potatoes of the reason why I'm there, to co-discover, to co-learn, and to co-build with them a solution that makes sense. And so for all the creatives out there that are anxious and worried and concerned about these meetings with these highfalutin executives, they're just flesh and blood, just like you and I. And in many ways, they don't know just as much as you don't know. Right. And so going in there and with that conceit of, hey, I'm just like you, but the difference is I'm willing to partner with you to learn and to grow and to discover what the solution is. Let's do this together. That's how you not only get rapport, but organizational alignment, and you can
building that trust creates a lot of value for them.
Absolutely.
And speaking of value, like how does a creative in a very subjective, field, like I know for you, for example, if you're doing Agile and you're like, I can spend 6 weeks with your team and save you 6 months of expenses, or, I know you get into real numbers, so it's no arguing like, oh, this is worth it. But for what we do, often very difficult. I know whether you're a designer, a photographer, filmmaker, whatever, you get in there and you're like, okay, here's what we charge. And there's an intangible nature to it, right? And so how do you speak to, or what do you have to say in reference to value? I know once you had told me in the past, like price is only an issue in the absence of value.
Exactly.
So
I'm glad that you remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great truth.
Price is only an issue in the absence of value.
So how do you, in your opinion, best communicate value especially when you're getting those higher levels of what you're charging?
I wouldn't say there's much of a distinction. There's much difference between my consulting role and a creative who's maybe creating some collateral or like a marketing campaign or a video or something like that. I don't think there's much difference there, in that as a consultant me or a creative you, the process is relatively the same. We have to discover and engage with our client to understand what they really want and what they really need. Now, at the end of the day, let's be intellectually honest. No one, especially when it comes to complex ideas, complex systems, complex technology, or complex designs, no one ever really knows what they want until they see what they don't want. And so the job of the consultant or creative is to build frameworks and to build models for your client, light models and light frameworks, so that we can quickly understand where you want us to go. And so it's not about trying to have the answers or have the solutions or have the entire picture, well understood in advance. It's never that. It's a collaborative discovery together of, hey, this is what you said you want. Let's dig in. This is what I'm seeing. Let's figure out where that matches. One of the best ways, and I recommend this to all of the coaches I work with, is to draw as much as possible. I find it fascinating that creatives, when they're doing consulting work with clients, they don't draw as much as their creative as a creative I would think should. Is whenever a client says, hey, this is what I think I want, or this is what they won't say I think, they'll say, this is what I want. You know, my first question is, draw it for me. I say, I'm a high-paid executive. No, draw it for me. Draw what you want. They'll draw it, and then it'll be completely different.
And get on the whiteboard with it.
Yeah, get on the whiteboard. Draw that idea, and they'll map it out. Yeah, they'll draw it out, and it's like, wow. I'll go up to the board and I'll say, well, this is what I was thinking. There'll be completely different ideas. But that right there, we can establish a shared understanding that we're different. But now we can work together to say, I like this part here, or I don't like this here, or I like that. Let's add that. And once you have something that you can align around, then you can come together and build something effectively together. But as long as we're just talking about it without the drawing aspect, you're always going to be shooting in the dark, because your conception of an idea, your conception of what you think you thought you wanted in a moment in time is almost impossible to fully understand across the table. You have to draw it out.
Yeah, what you say and what they hear are often two different things as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So my thing is, if we were to summarize up the last couple minutes of our conversation here, it would be simply come in there, ask lots of questions. Be honest. Be transparent about what you don't know. And number 2, draw as much as you can. The more that you draw, the more that you can get to alignment, you can get to a shared understanding of what you think you thought you wanted, and be able to collaborate and add, amend, change, remove ideas, as you will.
So, staying in this same kind of subject here, a lot of people want to understand, creatives have issues with a couple things, like selling their services or standing confidently in what they charge for their services, but also eventually waking up to the idea that, gosh, like there's only one of me, only so many hours in the day, right? And we hit that capacity constraint, and how do we break free, separate the time from income and set up recurring revenue? And
I'm going to sound a little bit hardcore here, but I'm pulling from Jerry Weinberg, who's a famous systems thinker. He wrote one of the best books on consulting in 1986. It's called The Secrets to Consulting. He actually mentored me for a while, and I got a signed copy of his book. But in his book, The Secrets to Consulting, Jerry Weinberg said this, that you want to always, when it comes to pricing, you always want to price at the price of least regrets. Now, what's the price of least regrets? The price of least regrets is that you price it so high that if they say no, you're okay with it. But if they say yes, then you're willing to do the work, even though you might be slammed with other work. You're willing to do it because the price point's so good. And so I've always, now it sounds hardcore, but that's how I've always operated. Is price it at a level of least regrets. Is that if you say no, I'm cool. If you say yes, I'm even more cool. Now I have to work extra hours to get it done because I'm slammed, but the price is really juicy, and I'm loving the amount of money that I'm getting for the work that I'm doing. Now, part of that is knowing what you yourself are worth. Now that's a tough idea.
Yeah, I was thinking you don't always start there, or do you start there? I mean, I'm thinking you have to build up to that mindset
No.
or to that place, or
Why? Why would you devalue yourself?
right?
We humans think so linearly when it comes to growth. Is that I have to get to A, then I get to B, then I get to C, and D precedes C. I mean, like, why?
After 5 years or after 10,000
after
hours, then I'll start doing
Yeah.
the price of least regret. Yeah.
No. Your value today is your value. Now, you know less today than you will in 5 years. That's true. But your value, you still have value that you can provide to a customer, to a client. Like I learned this back in 1997 with my first job at Johnson & Johnson. I was working with a consultant. His name was Rajesh. Now, he was an Oracle black belt. Now, what is Oracle black? It's a big database, and he's a master at this huge database. One thing that was really curious about Rajesh is he never took a lunch. And so we noticed this pattern.
Did he have one of those like wind up things on his back?
No,
and
he just never took lunch. He would eat at his desk. He would eat at his desk. And so one day we went up to him and we said, Rajesh, why do you never go to lunch? And he said, when you're charging the company $380 an hour, you wouldn't take a lunch either. And that, when he said that to me, I immediately was like, I want to be you. Mm-hmm. You're making $400 an hour? Like, hell yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And one of the things, and this is ducktailing into something that he said to me, I'll never forget. He said, and I don't remember how this came up, but he said at one point to me, he said, Peter, being a consultant means understanding your value. And to that I said, what does that mean? How do you understand your value? He said, if you know 1% more than your client, then you're the expert and you're valuable. And he wasn't saying it in a facetious manner. He wasn't saying it tongue in cheek.
Cocky
he was
manner,
saying it in like a, you know 1% and that has value. 1% more than your client, that has value. You have experiences, you have a perspective, you have a vantage point that they don't have. And so the question is, how can you leverage that so that your client appreciates what that is and who you are for what you're bringing to the table? Mm-hmm. And so I've always taken that and considered that, hey, my value is high because my time is worth a lot, right? I could be doing other things, right? And so when it comes to building up to a price level, no, find out what is the normative pricing for your work in the market. Go a little bit higher than the average. You're worth it. Now, you might not know what those experts know. That's fine. All can be learned.
Right.
All can be grown. Like, you can do anything. You can learn anything. And so
if you get up early.
If you get up early and you're assertive and initiative and you're progressively progressively realizing a worthy goal every day. If you're marching towards that goal every day, you will learn, you will grow, and you will feel even better about your price point. And so I've always charged more than the market average. Maybe I'm egotistical.
Do you have case studies for that stuff, for those people that want to see that? Like, okay, great. Let me see the data, or let me see the recommendations or any of that. Do you have any of that stuff? Because I know a lot of creatives we produce something of aesthetic value. It's like, great, what results are there that accompany that, right? So case studies for many of us are the way that we differentiate, right, and create distance between ourselves and, because anyone might be able to make a logo or a campaign of some sort, but like what came out of that is where the real value, at least for many creatives, lies.
Well, I'm gonna not talk about the obvious. Mm-hmm. That yes, you can have case studies, and I have plenty, and I've written about them in my books. I've talked about them at conferences about how I've improved productivity here, how I've reduced risk here, how I've saved money, blah blah blah. Like great.
Right.
No one ever takes that as the primary mechanism for decision making on whether they're going to hire you or not. They're not going to say, "Hey, Peter, save this company 15% like Geico, and this guy saved him 20%. So we're going to go with the guy who saved." No one makes that decision.
And if they do, they're probably a bad fit, right?
Probably. Yeah. You wouldn't want to work for those guys anyway because they're going to nickel and dime you all the way.
Right.
How you want to frame any type of engagement, whether you're a creative or a consultant, is this there's two things, really simple. And for the creatives out there, this is this is the model that I would use, because this is the model that I use right now. Number one, is this project interesting? If it ain't interesting, you're not going to put your heart into it.
Yeah.
You're not going to put everything that you got into it. And number two, is this person, whoever's going to be signing the contract, whoever I'm going to be working with, is this going to be a person that I'm going to have fun with? Now, if the project work is not interesting and the person that I'm talking to is as dry as a desert in terms of personality, it doesn't matter if you're going to pay me above market rate. I'm going to have one shitty time, because I would be like, this guy is a jerk. I don't really like him that much. He's not communicative to me. He's not excited about the work. And the project is talking about whatever, or, something. I'm building bricks. It's like, I don't want to build bricks. I don't want to make bricks. I want to build something complex. I want to build something that has value to your end users. And so that, and there's a point to all of this. If you as a creative or consultant hone in on it, is this the project work that's exciting? And is this person that I'm going to be working with fun? The price doesn't matter, number one. But number two, if they feel like you're the type of personality, you're the type of person that they're going to have fun with, they're going to choose you every time. And they're going to choose it as a price
experience people buy on.
People buy experience. I'll give you another story. It's just amazing how the mind works. So we were actually talking about this at lunch. I have a client down in, I won't say, South Georgia. A client down in South Georgia. And he sent me one of the best emails I could have ever received, ever. This was 5-6 years ago. In October, he sent me an email. He said, Peter, I've done a lot of client work for them. I've trained probably about 450 of their employees. Their management did an entire agile transformation of the software development department. And he sent me an email in October. He said, Peter, we have extra budget that we need to spend. Can we spend it with you? So that was his email. I hop up on my laptop and I'm just like, hell yeah, I will take your money.
It's the best kind of email right there, right?
And I said, yes, absolutely. I'd love to help out. Send.
I mean, who out there doesn't get that email once, twice a week at least, right?
So 15. It couldn't have been more than 15 minutes later. I get an email back and he says, "Oh, by the way, can we pay you in advance?
By the way,
can we
April
pay you?"
Fools.
His email back was, "Can we pay you in advance?" I'm like, "Oh, hell yeah! You can pay me in advance for something that we have no idea what we're going to be doing yet."
Right.
And the reason I tell you this story is because I had built up such a rapport. I had built up such a great relationship with this VP of this company.
Provided such a great experience.
Yeah. That he just wanted to work with me. He knew that when I came down there to help him and his team, that something was going to emerge that would be valuable. Because I had proven that over time with him, that I can provide value no matter where it is in the organization, whether it's IT, HR, marketing, sales. Like, there is something that I can provide value to. And that's what people purchase on. People purchase on the relational aspects of the contract, not the contract stipulations themselves. And so
there's the cold open. Keep going. No, I'm kidding. Yeah,
that's just tapping into the humanity of how people operate. And so, and it might be the salesman's trick, but one of the salesman's trick is to get your client, your customer, or whoever you're trying to pitch to, into an emotional state.
I was going to say to sell you for themselves, like to sell themselves on you. Yeah.
It's to get them into an emotional context, because purchase decisions are mostly emotional. Rather than
you make the decision and then you reverse, or you emotionally justify the decision afterwards. Very few people make it, Yeah,
and here's the thing. I can make your project sound exciting, even though you're the customer coming to me and saying, "Hey, can you help me with this project?" And they might propose it to me in a non-exciting way, but I can make it exciting. I can make it fun because I can see the opportunities that lie within that project.
Right.
I can see the questions, and I can see what potential outcomes could be. I could see scenarios in which myself and my client or my client's team were doing X, Y, and Z, and I can paint a picture for them. And painting that picture for them gives them something to look forward to, gives them something to say, wow, you know what? I talked with ABC consultant. He didn't tell me any of this. He just said, here's the contract stipulations. Here's what he's going to do. Here's how he's going to execute it. And here's the dollar amount and sign it. But the difference for me is when I come in there, I tell them a story. I tell them a narrative of what the future could be, or what this project could look like, or what the outcome of this product or service that you want to create could be. Mm-hmm. Oh, and by the way, I want you to be part of it with me. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, wait, we asked you to be here. No, you're hanging out with me now. Mm-hmm. This is my ship. And we're going to work together and create something fun. And people will always purchase fun. People rarely purchase project work consulting. They want to purchase fun. They want to purchase an engaging experience.
It's good.
So all that to say, so what do the creatives need to learn here? What do great consultants need to learn here? Learn how to craft a great narrative. Learn how to craft a great story. Learn how to
build a great experience. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this conversation that we're having right now is one long narrative, and it's fun and engaging. Well, learn how to do that.
True.
The best salesmen,
Okay.
I'll say this.
Yeah.
The best salesmen are great storytellers.
100%.
And I mean, I'm a great storyteller. So
I'm sold. All right. So one of the things, I know we hear this a lot. As creatives, we have to sell our services. You build that narrative, you pitch it. But there's a fine line between selling yourself, which involves kind of opening up the kimono, throwing some of the, wetting the palette, throwing some ideas out, and losing your idea in the process to the client. So how do you, I guess the question would then become, how do you provide valuable ideas without losing those ideas in part of the sales process?
Great question. Great question. I think it's a misconception that your ideas actually mean anything. Like they actually have value.
Right? No. I know there's a lot of people that are going, what? No, let's say that again.
Let me recontextualize it into a simpler statement. Your ideas aren't valuable.
Ideas aren't valuable. They're meaningless.
Even shorter. Ideas are not valuable. Execution on those ideas are valuable. Mm-hmm. And so I never worry about giving everything away. Actually, that's one of my secrets to my success. One of the secrets to my success with my clients is I give them more than they'd ever want, more than they'd ever need. Even in that initial discovery conversation where we're just talking about the overview and the 8,000 foot view of this project, what some of the implications are, here are some of the constraints, here's some of the dependencies, here are some of the risks. Yeah, we're talking at this high level. But
you're coming in open-handed as much as possible.
I come in and I say,
you're just like,
I'm going to give you everything I got, and you ain't getting charged for none of it right now. But I tell you, if you want to take this journey, if you want to do this and it's going to be fun and exciting and we're going to create something out of it and maybe you can get a promotion out of it, whatever intrinsically or internally motivates you to do this, you're going to get to do it with me. So you could do it with Joe Blow,
right?
Or you could do it with me. Mm-hmm. And so I gave you all these ideas. I opened the kimono, as you said. I gave you all these ideas. Yeah, sure, take them. Go try to execute those with Joe Blow. Have fun with that. Mm-hmm. Even the only way for you to fully experience all that I've given you for free is you got to do it with me. I'm the guy.
Right.
And so I don't ever worry about holding stuff close to the vest because my ideas aren't worth anything. It's the experience and execution of those ideas together that makes the experience worth paying for.
At some point, there's a contract. So you've pitched these ideas, they're free, and you got to spill that over now into, let's get this train started to get this show on the road. So how do you seamlessly make that happen? Are you there firing them up and selling them and they're like, man, we're ready, let's do this? And you're like, great, here's the contract? Or you're like, my agent will be in touch, or my assistant, or how's that flow work? And then what would you say? I mean,
Well, I'll tell
there's
you.
a lot of questions I know in the creative field swirling around contracts. A lot of what people do is based on just a trust and a handshake. Some of it, as it rightfully should be, is based on the written word and a common foundational understanding that protects both parties in that result. For you, what's the process?
The process is as light as I possibly can make it, which is, this is what we've talked about. This is what we've talked about. This is what we've discussed. These are the things that we want to execute upon, and this is the potential outcome.
And how quick are you delivering that understanding in paper?
Oh, it's usually a 1 or 2 pager.
No. I mean, how soon after the idea session, they're all the hoorah, you go home within 48 hours they get it?
Easily
next week?
within 48 hours. Okay. Most likely within 12 hours. I'll send them, hey, because if you're selling something, you want to do
strike while the iron's hot.
Strike while the iron's hot. You want to do momentum selling, right? There's momentum in their emotions. There's momentum towards the project. They're all jazzed up. They're excited. They're just coming down from the emotional high. They're getting home. You want to re-engage that psyche. You want to re-engage their brain and say, hey, this is so important to me. I have to get this back to you as soon as possible. Yeah, it's a light framework. It's a light contract of what we've talked about. We can iterate through it if you want. But given this is what we've talked about, this is what we expect, right? This is the price. I want to get that in their hands as soon as possible so that there's enough emotional context that when they hit the price, they will be less sticker shock. Because
you discuss the price in the idea session too, or no? The first time they're seeing it is on the contract?
No, I bring it up in the beginning. I say, this is what...
Because I've heard many times from very successful other creatives or business leaders that you want to discuss price up front and often.
Absolutely.
Up front and often, because otherwise there's this huge oh, what? I had no idea. Like we
absolutely.
just... So,
in most of the conversations that I have, it is here's the price. Now I have the next half hour to 45 minutes to prove to you that it's going to be worth it, and that's all. That the onus is on me.
So you lead with the cost.
Oh yeah,
price.
This like, oh holy crap, Peter, this is really expensive for what we're thinking about. It's like, yes. Now walk with me. Journey with me over the next 30, 45 minutes, and let me tell you why it's going to be worth it, right? And so for me, and that's just maybe my personality, I actually enjoy that challenge of being able to prove the worth or the aesthetic worth of the price that I've given you.
Now you're bringing that price on, like in real time, I'm assuming, after you've asked those probing questions and engaged them and shown them that you're interested and you're the guy, and then you probably go, you're probably looking at blank, and they're like, what? Well, let's talk, and then that's how I'm assuming it to be.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You obviously you want to build some relationship with them, some rapport before you slap them with the price.
Sure.
And so there's part of that discovery that you have with them. But through that discovery, you say, hey, based on my experiences, based on what you're telling me, this is going to be what it's going to be about. And what that means is it's going to be a 5-day engagement or a 2-day engagement or 1-day boot camp or what have you. And this is going to be the price point. And if they reel back, and they're just shocked, then that gives me the next 30 minutes to prove that it's worth that price, or to be able to answer any questions or risks or issues that they might have with that. But you want to move away from the price conversation as quickly as possible. Yep. You want to get them back into, here's the experience that we're going to have together. Because that's where human connection is really made. That's where life is really experienced. It's not at the contract level. It's at now we've gotten all that out of the way, the contract's out of the way. Now we get to hit the ground running. Our boots are on the ground. We're working together and we're having a fun time doing it.
So do you walk through when you deliver the contract, do you walk through that in person or over the phone, or you just send it off?
I usually just send it off because generally there's enough context when what we've talked about previously that if they have any questions, then we can go through them. But the art of selling is storytelling.
Absolutely.
And you want to move away from the bare knuckle, very clinical contract stuff as fast as possible, because that just kills momentum when you're talking about it.
Right. So what do you build in enough price to just handle some scope creep, or what happens when scope creep kicks in? If additional, do you go?
It's always time and materials. Here's the initial contract. Anything that changes beyond the contract or the expectations of the contract is going to be a day rate or whatever.
And you remind them of that, or you just say nope at the end of the.
It's in a clause.
Yeah, but you don't have so if they call up with a new thing, you don't say, well, it's going to be extra.
No.
You just go sure and just do it, and then later on they get the bill and they're like, well, wait, and it was right here. You signed in the.
Yeah, I don't want to have those conversations. It's in the contract stipulations. For an example, one clause I always have is because I do a lot of training. If you cancel the training within a 7-day period or change the dates, it's a 30%. Just doesn't matter. Even if it was on a Thursday and you moved it to Friday, it's 30% upcharge, bro. Because I have set up other schedules to make sure that this works. And this is the cost of doing business. This is the cost of change. And sometimes I need to remind clients of that, is that there is never, ever a point in history, in anyone's life, that change does not have a cost. I think clients forget that. Clients forget that, hey, they think that, hey, I can make changes at no cost to me. Well, yeah, it might not cost you anything, but it's costing your contractors, your consultants, or your employees, or the people that are working for you. And so sometimes I need to.
Yeah, that's huge. Small point, but huge.
Oh, huge. Customers, clients often forget this nuance, and I have to remind them.
Every change
has a cost.
Yeah.
It's physics, right? It's it's the law of conservation of energy, right? It's when something changes a state here, other things change as well, right? And so to any type of change in an organizational system, there's always going to be a cost. And so likewise, if there's any change to any contracts, there's always a cost. And it's not me trying to nickel and dime you. It's just the nature of physics, is the nature of reality. There's always a cost to change. And my cost is 30% or my cost is X. It's a little bit more than maybe your usual fare, but this is what I charge. Is the experience still worth it? And generally it is.
All right, shifting gears, moving back a second here. We've talked a lot about, or touched on, I should say, pricing yourself, negotiations, contracts, providing great experience,
yes,
all that stuff. So
narrative,
storytelling, right? So some people have asked, like, what do I do if I'm just the guy who's constantly getting the $5,000 project? How do I move to the 5-figure, project? How do I move if I'm in the 5-figure? How do I move into the 6-figure? How do I move up? How do I break through those price barriers? And you've mentioned this before about what the market will bear and so forth. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So whenever you're pricing yourself, you should always do a little bit of market demographic, market research as what the market's willing to bear in terms of the service that you provide. Now, for me, if the service I provide is, I'm making this up, is $1,000 a day, I'll charge more because I know I'm worth it. Now, most creatives and most consultants can't say that. And the reason is twofold. Number one, they lack self-confidence in their ability, or they're struggling with imposter syndrome. You need to get over that because no one knows what the hell they're really doing anyway.
Huge truth there.
And let's be honest, just be intellectually honest. So number one, you need to get over the imposter syndrome because no one really knows what they're doing. But number two, one of the biggest things is you probably don't have a differentiating value proposition than the rest of the market. You do everything similarly, maybe in a templatized way, of what everyone else is doing. What makes you special?
And even if you are different, you're doing a poor job of communicating that difference.
Oh, absolutely. So what makes you different? What value you provide to your client that is different from everyone else? And I'll give you the answer. It ain't hard. It's not that I can provide you with a new method or a new process or a new product or a new widget. No, anybody can do that. Your differentiating factor is your personality and how you can engage their humanity and their humanness unlike anyone else. The best conversations at the contract negotiation table that I've ever had, Kevin, is when we spend only 5 to 7 minutes talking about the contract, right, and the next 50 minutes we're talking about golf, or we're talking about racing, or we're talking about something completely non-contextually relative to the work at hand, because that's what people are really paying for. And I'll give you a different example.
I've heard it said all business happens on the golf course, or basically in third gear, this relational gear of everybody's dealing in.
Right. I am a big fan. I'm going to use some fancy words here from my educational background, but I always want to focus on building up relational equity with my clients. And always in the back of my mind, moving away from any type of transactional conversation or transactional relationship. A transactional relationship is when you and I go to Publix or Target. We pay the money, they give us our goods. That's a transactional relationship. I don't even need to know your name.
Yep.
Relational equity is, how can I grow equity, value in learning about you as my customer client, and how can you extract value out of learning about who I am? You know, any type of tips on interviewing, blog, they'll tell you this. You should do some research on the interviewer, right? The recruiter or whoever.
Yeah.
Like, I see that you went to UGA. You know, so did I. You know, University of Georgia. So did I. You know, I see that you're into golf. You know, I like that too, right? Creating those human connections early on covers a world of sin. And the reason I say that is because you might make faux pas. You might say things wrong in the meeting. You might say something that was an assumption that was completely off base. Or you might make a comment that was a little off-putting that you thought was a joke. It was just ill-timed, right? I have a tendency to do that because in a lot of ways, I just keep talking. But when you've created the relational equity, it covers that multitude of sins when you make mistakes in front of them or you say something wrong, because they're like, hey, you know, he at the end of the day is a good person. I've met him. I've seen this about him. We've talked about this. We've had a joke about this. We've had fun. And you say, well, Peter, this sounds like just a regular conversation with your friend. Yeah, because with your friends, you have relational equity.
Right.
You don't have transactional relationships. And so for you and I can talk about this stuff freely because we have relational equity. We can talk about the nitty gritty. We can laugh about the things that are stupid, right? And we can have fun doing it too. But at the same time, doing business like we are now.
And I think that's important to know, because a lot of companies, the best ones out there, the bigger brands and so forth, are really taking advantage of that idea of emotional connections marketing. That's something that I know is behind organizations like Chick-fil-A, for example. No one's going in there because they sell chicken sandwiches. They're going in there because of how it makes them feel and the solution they're providing in terms of, I can get a good quality meal, get a great customer service, and have a great family experience, and have it all done in a timely, cost, highly valuable way.
Right. If we were to look at this example of Chick-fil-A and their model, their value proposition is the experience. It's not the chicken. The product is chicken.
Right.
But the value is the experience. It's the service.
Right.
It's the fact that I know my order is going to be right.
The secret sauce you can't capture. There's a reason why there's literally a Chick-fil-A and a Kentucky Fried Chicken side by side, and the lines all the way around Chick-fil-A, and over here we've got 3 cars.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so when Chick-fil-A is a great example. Whenever I go there, I just feel good. That the fact that I'm ordering something that I'm going to get that's going to be tasty, and they're going to be nice to me. And
I don't feel bad about myself when I leave.
I don't feel bad about myself. And if mistakes are made,
Yep.
they'll correct them, because if the fries are bad or the chicken sandwich is off, they'll give me a free coupon for our next one.
Sure.
Like, that is all.
They take care of you.
I know this. Now, how did I know this? Because I've had enough experiences with them to know that this is the pattern of how they operate, and that's what I buy on. I buy on that experience, not the actual product itself, right? And so that's what creatives and consultants need to do, is create an experience, a conversational experience with your clients and customers.
Emotional connection.
Yeah, that they won't forget, and they not only won't forget, but they'll want to have it, and they'll want to have it more, and they'll want to do it again. Right? And I think that's the exciting part when I have conversations with clients and customers, and they'll say, man, I've been looking forward to this conversation, Peter. It's like, good. Got you hooked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because we've already got the operational excellence. We've already got the second mile service in most cases. And then that emotional connection is what the real culture fit, the intangible mojo that can't be just copied. Anyone can run out and buy a camera, but what you produce with it, or anyone can buy a computer. What you produce with it is what matters. Where the real differentiator
Follow-up is really.
I
I do want to say this. Follow-up is really crucial too, and not just follow-up because you've closed a deal, but follow-up even when you haven't closed a deal. Like, I'll still ping potential customers, potential clients that we didn't close a deal if I have their cell phone. I say, hey, Joe, what's going on? Just thought about you. And yeah, I did. I thought about you enough to write this text message to you. And I'll say, just say, hey, how are things going? I know that we discussed X, Y, and Z. I hope it's going well with whoever you've chosen or however you're progressing. Let me know if I can help. And taking that extra, some people, it's so lame, but taking that extra 30 seconds in a day to write a couple text messages to potential clients or existing clients goes a long way. Out of sight, out of mind kind of idea. The more that you're within their system and they start creating those neural connections of, hey, when I'm doing this, it reminds me of Peter. And when I'm doing X, Y, and Z, it reminds me of Peter. When I said this, that's something that Peter would have said. Like those are the triggers that say, I have a problem. Mm-hmm. Peter's the guy that's closest in my mind that I could potentially provide the solution for that. Mm-hmm. I should hit him up. I should talk with them, right? And so having that follow-up, having that discipline to follow up and keep connecting on the emotional level with your customers or clients, it's really crucial. I've had clients that have, and you probably know this too, I've had clients where the cycle time to close the deal is like 2 years, right? It's taken 2 years from the first time I've ever met them to actually close a deal. Because of constraints, mm-hmm. because of funding, because of market conditions, because of but I earned it over those 2 years because I kept engaging them, kept reminding them, and so it's one of those things where sometimes the cycle time of sales is so long, but it's always worth it if you're continuing to keep up those relationships.
Yeah, that's good. So shifting gears real quick, I want to talk a little bit about teams and partnerships because I know that's something you have a lot of experience with. And as creatives, we're building something beyond ourselves and bigger than ourselves. And for many of us, there is a need for a business partner and or, of course, a team. And so when's the right time or what's the litmus test for knowing whether you, number one, need to start out with a partner, and number two, once you're at that certain point, like when is it time to up the team? When's it time to bring in the extra talent, whether it's an internship, a part-time, a full-time, a 1099, whatever. What's your philosophy on that?
Well,
you used to have a team and analytics company back in the day.
Right.
So
right.
You know a lot about the personality side. And a lot of people just think, we need to hire.
It's funny that you remember that.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of this people think about, I just need to hire this talent.
No.
I just need to hire the guy that knows this software, or I just need to hire this person that knows this client, or and we're automatically will be great. No. And I think it's one of the biggest mistakes people can make. So can we address that?
Absolutely. So I'll start off with a maybe somewhat well-known phrase that you can go faster alone, farther together. Right? Faster alone, farther together. So let's start on that first part. Faster alone. Absolutely. You can go so much faster by yourself. And adding on to that is that you want to go as fast as you possibly can by yourself and do the unscalable as long as possible to the point where you need to find a partner or someone to help you out. And the reason is because in any type of project, any type of company building, you have to learn the entire business of that. You have to do ops, you have to do admin, you have to do sales, marketing, service delivery. You have to do all of that. And you have to learn all of that. And it is much easier to learn all of that when it's just you and it's one opinion, not multiple. And so because we've talked about it in the beginning, right? I've built iPhone apps, mobile apps, consulting companies, full-fledged, cryptocurrency exchange, like complex exchange companies. Like I've built a lot of different companies in a lot of different markets. But in any of those markets, I had to learn as much as I possibly could about that business without any other distractions, without any other people. So I always say, go as fast as you possibly can, do the unscalable until it is no longer it's no longer possible, no longer feasible. At that point, you need to find someone to help you out, someone to help you go farther. Now, when it comes to finding someone to help you go farther, the most important thing is to trust your gut. I can't tell you, Kevin, how many times where I have not trusted my gut on a hire and it took me too long to fire him, took me too long to get rid of him, it took too long to have those tough conversations, and it was a waste of my time. Like, the Egyptians have said that your gut was like your second brain.
Mm-hmm. I would even more nerve endings in your gut than your brain.
Oh, for sure.
Yep.
And I would go even farther from my own pragmatic experience is that trusting my gut has been one of the best things that I could have ever learned in all of this business building, is that when I meet someone and my gut just tells me that they're not the right fit, they're not going to work out, doesn't matter if they have checked all the boxes.
Yeah.
And then that's one of the things that new business owners, new operators will all fall into the trap of, is that they'll hire for a function. No, you don't hire a sales guy just to do sales. You don't hire a marketing guy, marketing. You need to hire the whole person.
Right.
Because we kind of compartmentalize the functions, the functions of the individual versus the individual themselves. It's a small business owner, we're not talking about large businesses here, we're talking about small businesses. Small business, you're hiring the whole person. Mm-hmm. If you don't like one aspect of how they sip their coffee, don't hire them. Because the way that they sip...
I can't tell you how many guys that we have just fired because of the freaking way they drank coffee.
I'm telling you, if it irks you to no end, that's going to be like a nail into your temple at night.
Yeah.
And so trusting your gut when it comes to hiring is absolutely essential. And I can't hammer this home enough for your listeners here. Trust your gut. If your gut has even an inkling of, man, this guy, this gal, it's not gonna just something there, don't sign the contract. Don't bring them on until either that's gone or whatever
addressed, resolved,
addressed or resolved. Yeah.
I know people hire on their gut, like you're talking about. It's great to do that, and you need to do that. I mean, there's important information that comes from that place. But beyond the gut, I think there needs to also be some consideration, and I know you would agree, with regard to personality type and voice types. And you used to have a company that dealt with that at one time. Right. Can you speak to that?
So I probably have more experience than most around personality types, like your Myers-Briggs, right? Your Strengths Finders 2.0, your DISCs.
Now you got the Enneagram.
That's right, exactly. So I actually worked with 3 PhDs out of Texas and created a startup building a psychometric assessment survey tool similar to Myers-Briggs or DISC or Insight. And so it was called Team Science, and we focused on team dynamics. So I know a lot about this area, and it's very, very important. There'll be 2 things that I want to talk about here. The first is, I'll start with an example. And the example comes from, I believe, a 2012 article from Psychology Today where they found that 90% of hiring managers hire people exactly like themselves to solve problems that they can't solve. And so
sounds like a big mistake.
Yeah, it's a big mistake. And the reason they hire people like themselves is because they're like themselves. It's easy to connect with them. It's easy to make rapport. It's easy to have the same vernacular, the same speech patterns, and the same intonations of how they communicate effectively, or the same historicity of the background that they came from. And so it's easy to connect with those people. The problem is that those people can't solve the problems that you can't solve. And so there'd be 2 things that I'd say. Number 1, when it comes to hiring someone, you have to look at the whole person. We talked about this a little bit with trusting your gut, but look at the whole person. Are there things about this person that intrigue you and excite you about who they are? When I have worked, now this is so important, and it might not seem important on the surface, but if I can't get excited about who you are, why the hell would I want to work with you? If I hired someone just like myself, I already know everything about you. We both grew up in New Jersey. We both hung out in this casino. We both like the same games. We both like soccer. I have nothing else to learn about you. And so when you're looking at the whole person, are there things that intrigue you about them that make you want to learn more about them? And the more that you learn about them, the more a good leader is able to do is extract things from them. Like, hey, you're great at doing X, you're great at doing Y. Let's try this together. Let's try stretching you here in this type of role. And that's what good leaders do, is when they hire the whole person and leverage the whole person for who they are, not just some sort of functional role that you're going to be a sales, or you're going to be a marketing, or you're going to be a developer, or you're going to be an analyst, or whatever.
Yeah, one of the points that comes to mind for me right now is what Zappos. I don't know if they still are. I assume they still are. But back in the day, one of the reasons why Amazon purchased them was they were known for their incredible culture. I mean, Tony Hsieh, in the business he built, he wrote a book about it called Delivering Happiness.
Right.
And you've got the idea that you don't just ask someone to show up to their job and leave everything about who they are behind. And so they built one of the most incredible companies by saying, hey, bring all of who you are to work. And their culture was unlike any other company, and people loved working there. So much so that Zappos would pay them up front, we'll give you $2,000 to quit your first week.
Exactly.
Take it. And they'll say, nope, we love this company too much to take that. We're staying. I mean, it's just crazy, but amazing that you would say, hey, you play the guitar, bring a guitar to work.
Exactly.
Hey, you used to live in Hawaii. Bring your stuff to the office. I want your desk to look like where you used to live.
Exactly.
Whatever it is, just like, and there was just this melting pot of personality and talent and freedom and ideas and so forth.
And that's number two. Number one is you're hiring the entire person of them. They have to be someone that intrigues you and interests you, so that you are incentivized to learn more about them, so that you can, as a good leader, extract great things out of them. But number two is you have to understand if they are, and I like to use this term, radically transparent or radically authentic. If that individual, and we're talking at the leadership level here, if they are not radically authentic with you, don't hire them ever, ever. If they can't be honest with you about who they are, how their worldviews, their mental models around work, around family, around faith, around a multiplicity of things that you deem valuable to you.
Yeah.
If they cannot be radically transparent around that stuff, then they should not be at the leadership level with you. Now, remember, the context of this is creatives, consultants, small company. We're hiring leadership in the beginning. We'll hire employees, later.
Yeah.
Employees, I don't need to know all the ins and outs of who they are, right? They're a couple of steps removed or a couple levels removed. But if we're talking about leadership here, they're getting into bed with you. And Lord Jesus, I'll tell you, I only get into bed with one woman. Now, if I'm going to be getting into business bed with all these other people, I better freaking like them. Mm-hmm. And not just I'm hiring you. I have a high from hiring you, and it's exciting to go through that process. For me, hiring is one of the most stressful things that I could ever do in a company, because I know that bad relationships at the leadership level, it doesn't matter if you have a multi-billion-dollar idea. Bad relationships at the leadership level will tank your best ideas every day.
House divided, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So
absolutely,
it's good. And I know there's a lot more we could talk about that in terms of, if you've got this kind of personality or voice type here, you're going to have weaknesses over here that you need to kind of fill with other members of your team. And
it's your job as a leader to ask those probing questions, those discovery questions of these people that you're going to hire. Like, what do you think about X? What do you think about Z? Have you ever, dealt with this? And we're not stupid. I have not hired people merely because of the way that they responded to a single question that I asked. They paused, they diverted their eyes, and I was like, "You're lying," or "You're not being fully authentic here," or "You're placating, or you're glazing over the real details." And I'll say, "Hey, man, like, is it just me, or did you kind of like softball that answer? Mm-hmm. Did you kind of like glaze over the real details?" And they say, "Well, I didn't think it was that important." It's like, yeah, it is. Mm-hmm. Because I'm hiring you for a role that I think is integral to the success of our company. And if you feel like the shorter answer is the better way to get out of this conversation, then I don't want to have this conversation anymore. I want to know the real.
Sure. I remember you told me years ago, character is king, and I love that.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's so simple, but it's so true. And that's true of your team, it's true of yourself. You've got to lead with that. And I think in all aspects.
I've worked with so many teams at clients where they have rock stars with shitty attitudes. I don't care if you can write code up and down. I don't care if you're the best X, Y, and Z in your market. If you're an asshole, if you're a jerk, if you're someone that's not at peace with yourself, not a person that is enjoyable to work with, I don't care how awesome you are, right? I want to work with people who are authentically frail, authentically real, authentically broken.
Yeah, kind of we're all in this mess,
Like, you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Mm-hmm. We're trying to build something great out of the imperfectness of who we are together, right? And if you can't give me the real now, when we're up against a wall and we're making some of the toughest decisions to pivot our business or do X, Y, and Z, and if you can't give me the real now, you're not going to give me the real then. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because you're going to be playing to me. You're going to be saying what you think I need to hear. You're going to say something that you think is politically correct or the right thing to say at that moment in time. I don't ever want to hear the right thing. I already know what the right thing to do is. Mm-hmm. I need you to tell me otherwise. I need you to give me the other side of that balanced equation. I need you to tell me why it's not a good idea. I need you to tell me, Peter, this is why I'm going to stick by it. I want to go to toe-to-toe. I want to fight over it. Mm-hmm. Because, just like in the Matrix with Neo when he's fighting that the key maker or whatever. I don't remember.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the best way to know, and in martial arts they'll say the best way to know your opponent is to have to fight them, because then you know everything about them, right? So spar with them.
One of the things that we touched on the break was that this idea that, if you don't hawk what you do, who's going to, right? Nobody knows. If you got the best service, best product in the world, and nobody knows about it doesn't matter.
When it comes to any creative or any consultant, you are selling your services to the masses. You're selling your service to a market demographic. You're selling your service to a market segment. Here's the thing. Your market's never heard of you. So you need to hawk your services. You need to sell yourself and market yourself all the time.
Despite of what everyone else says, despite of the hate, despite of the missteps or whatever,
Yes, you need to get over that shit. First off, and I've done podcasts and I've done shows about this before. First off, no one's thinking about you. You know why? Because no one knows who you are. But even if they know who you are and they've seen you on TV or an ad or something, they're still not thinking about you. You are not within the matrix of their decision making most of the day. And so where you want them to think of you when they're making decisions is because they're seeing you. They've heard you. They can make connections of who you are because you've been so prolific in your marketing. Now, people will get, they'll give people issue and they'll talk down to people who are constantly blasting out on the internet, their services, constantly marketing. And you can think of anyone that's out there all the time that's on YouTube ads. I love it, because what they're doing is they're becoming part of my world. They're becoming part of my experience. They're creating neural connections. When I think of X, I suddenly think of this guy or this gal, right? Creatives need to get over the fact that other people's opinions about them matter, because they don't. None of anyone else's opinions matter. And again, number one, they're not thinking about you anyway most of the time. And so if you want to be successful in any endeavor, whether you're a consultant or creative or selling services or product, you have to be a marketer of yourself. The best people who are able to be successful in this are the people who've had the seat time and enough. When I say seat time, means tons and tons and tons of experience of communicating who you are, your value proposition to the world. Like if you Google me, Peter Saddington, you will find, I don't even know, thousands of web pages with me on them. Now, it could be talking about cryptocurrency or agile software development or race car driving, or it doesn't matter. I'm all over the place. Good. I'm relevant. If you dig even deeper, you might find this other guy named Peter Saddington down in England who sells sex advice. Not me.
Not you. Yeah.
Not me.
Don't go that deep.
But you have to get on people's radar. You have to get over yourself. You have to get over your own fear of the perception of others. I think one of the biggest things that holds people back is that fear of what other people think. It's crazy how insidious this kind of the psychological idea is of what I'm saying is going to be judged. Yeah, what you say is going to be judged. Own it. They're either going to like you, they're not going to like you, or they're going to ignore you.
Doesn't matter.
Pick one.
Just do it.
Pick one.
Yeah.
I don't care if I'm associated with X, Y, and Z. You know me. And that's the important thing. As we move, and I think this is important, as we move to an even more mobile-first, video-first, remote work world, let me repeat that. As we move to a video-first, mobile-first, remote work world, it is going to be imperative that creatives and consultants are on video, effectively and succinctly communicating their value proposition to who they are. Because resumes are a thing of the past. Ain't nobody gonna read that stuff. They want to. I see a future where recruiters or people who are looking for services and consultants and creatives, they're not gonna look for resumes and paper, or they're not gonna look at blog posts. They're gonna look you up on YouTube. Actually, I know this for a fact because I work with a lot of investors and startups. Out east in Asia, let's say Singapore and Vietnam, Google is not the number one search engine. YouTube is their first search engine. So if I want to learn about making a cup, I don't go to google.com how to make a cup. They go to youtube.com and say, how do I make a cup? And so video is going to be first. It's going to be the first place where people look for. And so it's going to even grow even
Makes
more
sense.
onto the Western world.
Yeah.
And so for creatives out there, when it comes to marketing and sales and hawking your own stuff, you got to start with video. You got to start now. You got to start learning how to communicate effectively on video. It's going to be your biggest differentiator, because everyone who can't are not going to turn up in any search results.
Well, okay. We've talked about a lot. We've been here a while. I know that there's so much more we could discuss, but in the meantime, today, you want to speak to like what's next for Peter Saddington? What's got your interest? Where are you going? What's the new goals you're currently knocking the 1% out on?
Well, right now I work with the company Agile for All.
Right.
You can go to agileforall.com, and I do certified Scrum Master, certified Product Owner. I do a lot of Agile training online. And I'm helping this company, Agile for All, move to this mobile first, video first, remote work world. And so I'm helping them productize training and productize workshops in digital format on video, on demand type stuff. And because that's where the world is going to. So that's where I'm spending a lot of my time right now as an Agile consultant, an Agile coach, is training online with clients and companies, as well as building out a library of content there. Because I've done that before in a lot of my other endeavors, and I enjoy doing that. So that's what I'm doing right now. From an extracurricular side, I'm spending time on the racetrack with racing cars and my son, who's in go-karting. And so he's really enjoying that these days. So that's where I'm spending about 2 or 3 days a week on the track.
Yeah. Keep an eye out. His son is going to be amazing.
I hope so.
Yeah. So, well, man, is there a way that people can reach out to you if they had any questions, or what's the best way to get a hold of you on the socials or otherwise?
Yeah, you can Google Peter Saddington, or you can follow me on Twitter at AgilePeter, or you can go find me on LinkedIn. So linkedin.com/in/Peter Saddington. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can go to vchunting.com. That's kind of like my online portal for the work that I do and what I'm all about. So vchunting.com. But probably the easiest way is just to follow me on Twitter on AgilePeter.
Awesome. Well, dude, thanks so much for being here again. It's been a real pleasure. Loved having you on the show. I feel confident that people watching have learned a lot. I know I have. We're going to talk more in the future. And until next time, man, just really appreciate you being here and look forward to unpacking some of these things in the future. Thanks, guys. Check us out. Creative Table Show on the socials. Otherwise, we will see you next time.